This is the OnePlus Nord, an incredibly high quality and feature-packed phone with a surprisingly budget cost. Let's switch gears in this one and not compare everything it is to $1,000 plus flagships, and instead genuinely look at what this phone is capable of. Coming up. Hey everyone, I'm David and welcome to Affordable Tech. This is where you can find videos on the capabilities of high quality budget tech. So if you enjoy tech and like saving money, just make sure to subscribe. So here we have the US version of the OnePlus Nord. OnePlus sent it out as a part of their beta program, so huge shout out to them for providing this model. In this review, I'm going to walk you through every aspect of this phone and help you decide whether it's something for you. So the Nord seems to be well liked in the tech community, except a lot of reviews will focus on the flaws of the phone while briefly scrubbing over its specs and capabilities. I would like to do the opposite and focus more on its capabilities instead of its flaws. So let's go ahead and take a look at this phone. So I managed to lose the unboxing footage that I had, but we'll kind of reenact it. So it comes in a high quality box. Opening it up, firstly we can see the phone that was in some plastic. On the phone is actually a pre-applied screen protector, which is a great plus. And then everything else that comes in the box would be a welcome letter, a clear phone case, safety information and warranty card, quick start guide, some pretty neat stickers, the Warp Charge 30-watt power adapter, Warp Type-C cable, and a SIM tray ejector. So the biggest feature of this phone is the price. Currently for the US version, the price is unconfirmed, but the base model will most likely come in at around $400 USD. OnePlus's brand was built upon the idea of a low-costing, high-quality phone. The OnePlus One, for example, came in at just $299 and was a great phone for its time, but now their newest phones are $699 for the 8 and $899 for the 8 Pro. You can see their prices have steadily increased as they came out, and they've gone into flagship territory for the past several releases. So with the Nord, they're going back to their roots and are really pushing for a high-quality yet low-costing smartphone. With the Nord, you have two options: 128GB with 8GB of RAM, or 256GB with 12GB of RAM. Mine is the 256 gig model. So it will be sub 500 for the base model for sure, and then just a little bit above that for the upgraded version. They have two color options. This is blue marble, and then they also have gray onyx. So this blue is very blue. When first opening the package, I was just surprised how vibrant it was. The frame is a darker, more metallic blue, which I think makes it pop even more. So as far as dimensions go, it's 6.2 inches in height, 2.89 inches wide, 8.2 millimeters thick, and it weighs in at 184 grams. Let's talk about the build. It has a glass back, and the frame looks like it may be metal, but it's not. It's plastic with a metallic finish. I definitely don't mind that it's plastic. You'll just have to be wary of scuffs or scratches if you're using it without a case. So far in my experience, I have used the Nord mostly without a case, and I have yet to notice any scuffs or scratches on the finish of the phone. It has a 4-camera setup on the back, and next to that is a dual flash module, which sits underneath the glass. Then on the left side of the frame, we have a volume rocker. The top of the frame just has a microphone, and then on the right side is a mute slider, which is great. This slider has 3 settings: silent, vibrate, and ring. I just really love the physical aspect of the slider. If you're at work or in a meeting and just want to make sure that your phone is muted, you can just feel for the button rather than having to pull out your phone and change the settings on screen. It has a great click to it, and it's also machined to be grippy. So also on the right side is the sleep wake button. The slider and the buttons are all metal, and the buttons have a pretty solid click. And finally, on the bottom of the frame, you'll find a linear speaker, Type-C charging port, another microphone, and a dual SIM card slot. Okay, so the build overall is great. It has a nice form factor, and it just feels like it's a premium device in your hand. Now for the screen. It's a 6.44 inch fluid AMOLED display. It has a resolution of 2400 by 1080 and a pixel density of 408 ppi. It has an aspect ratio of 20 by 9, and it's also made with Gorilla Glass 5. While all of that is great, the best part about the display is that it has a 90Hz refresh rate. This is one of the best features on this phone. Not all apps or games will support this, but in native OS and while scrolling and browsing, it feels great. As high refresh rate phones become even more common than they are now, more and more apps will begin to support this in the future. Okay, so this screen has pretty minimal bezels. There's a slight larger bezel on the bottom chin and an even thinner one at the top where the earpiece is located. Then of course, you have the dual camera hole punch in the upper left corner. This display really gives off a modern flagship vibe. Now I know I said I wouldn't compare to flagships, but I had to say it. Honestly, to me, the screen looks impressive. Colors are vibrant, the brightness is good, it has a high contrast ratio, and there's also a good bit of customization you can do. Now, there seems to be some off-axis rainbow hues depending on the viewing angle, but it's really not bad unless you're almost looking at the phone on its side. For normal viewing, you shouldn't notice it. Overall, I gotta say I really do dig this display. Watching videos, browsing online, or playing games all looks great. The display also has a built-in fingerprint reader, which is a capacitive scanner, so it shines a bright light under your finger to scan. In my experience, it's pretty fast and recognizes my fingerprint the majority of times. It's definitely a convenient addition. So let's talk about the OS. To be straight up with you, my only true usage experience with Android was an HTC Droid Incredible back in like 2014 running Android 3 or 4. So my experience with Android has been fairly limited. Now I have messed with some other modern Androids, but nothing as a daily driver. Out of curiosity, just let me know in the comments what your experience with Android looks like. That being said, I'm thoroughly impressed with the software on the Nord, Oxygen OS. Based on my research, it's widely considered to be one of the best Android softwares currently. It has pretty much no bloatware and is practically a stock version of Android with some additional features. Firstly, it's fast. OnePlus has upped the speed of a lot of processes to make the overall feel of the OS to be snappy. I love the feel and it maintains smoothness throughout. There's also some great features, gestures being one of them. You can customize specific gestures to open or toggle pretty much anything. So you can see now if I draw a no when the screen is locked, my flashlight turns on, and same thing to turn it off. There's also quick launch. Access apps after keeping your finger on the fingerprint reader and swipe to select. There's also a lot of customization you can do natively. For instance, app icons, shapes, color themes, app drawer options, and more are just some of the things you can customize to make the device feel more of yours. There's also a dark mode which utilizes the OLED display and will actually help save some battery. I honestly just leave mine on dark mode as I prefer the looks of the darker UI. The Nord has haptic feedback as well. While typing, unlocking the phone, clicking home, and more, it adds a nice touch to make you feel more connected to what you're doing. So these are just some of the many features to Oxygen OS. And overall, I've enjoyed my experience on Android and am still learning things regularly. Now let's talk about battery. The Nord is phenomenal in this category. It has a 4115 milliamp hour battery, and I've received anywhere from 6+ hours of screen on time from a single charge, with moderate usage. But where it really shines is the charging. It has some of the fastest charging I've ever seen on a smartphone, let alone one at this price range. The 30-watt charging brick it comes with can charge the Nord from 0 to 70% in just 30 minutes, which is incredible. So battery and charging, top notch. On to performance. Let's run through some of the specs. It has a Snapdragon 765G and 8 or 12 gigabytes of RAM. It also supports 5G, which is a huge plus. So performance-wise, the Snapdragon 765G does a great job. I really haven't noticed any lags or skips overall, either when browsing or switching through applications. For gaming, same story. I'm actually surprised at how well this phone games. In a first-person shooter, I get high frame rates with no issues at all. The whole experience is seamless and immersive. It also has a gaming mode and a dedicated gaming app called GameSpace. In this app, you can enable some pretty wild optimization. For instance, with this enabled, your notifications will turn off. It will improve app launch speed, increase performance by optimizing the CPU, GPU, and RAM, and overall give you a more immersive gaming experience. Just a really great and thoughtful feature to have. Keep in mind, for the lower end model, you'll be getting 8 gigabytes instead of 12 gigs of RAM, so there may be some slight performance differences, but I wouldn't expect anything significant. Overall, I've been thoroughly impressed with the performance on this device. I would have expected some performance issues considering the price point, but that's not the case. Everything stays smooth and fluid, and I really enjoy using the phone because of that. Moving on to cameras, the Nord has a total of 6 cameras. On the rear, we have the main camera, which is a 48 megapixel with an aperture of 1.75. Next is an ultra-wide lens at 8 megapixels with an aperture of 2.25. The one below that is a depth sensor, and the last one is a macro lens. On the front, we have a 32 megapixel main camera with an aperture of 2.45, and then an ultra-wide lens at 8 megapixels with the same aperture at 2.45. So let's start with the good. The main and ultra-wide cameras on both the front and the back are good. They have moderate sharpness, decent colors, exposure, and white balance. Here are some example shots. All around, the main and ultra-wide cameras on both the front and back are just fine. Now, consider that just fine still means that you can get some nice and clean shots out of them. I mean, these cameras definitely produce some decent images. It also has portrait mode. It does a fair job at edge detection, and the photos turn out alright, but it's nothing to brag about. Now, on to the bad. which is really just the macro lens. Most reviewers of this phone have said that this macro lens is pretty much useless. And honestly, I do kind of have to agree. Here's a comparison of a macro shot versus the main camera just cropped in. The photo overall just looks better on the main camera. As many others think as well, I think they could have just done away with this macro lens and then invested that saved money into a dual speaker setup. But overall, the cameras on this phone are still good. For someone who just wants to take some decent pictures, this camera setup will work just fine. Something to mention before we move on is that this phone utilizes the front-facing camera for face unlock. It's surprisingly fast and is just another plus if you prefer that over the fingerprint reader. Just keep in mind it won't work well in low light, but you can turn on a feature that will brighten the screen when in a dark environment. Personally, it's not for me, but it's definitely a nice additional feature to have. Now for the speaker. This phone has only one downward-facing speaker. It's fairly tinny, but it does the job. Once again, not a big deal. This is obviously where they made some cuts, but overall it just does its job as a speaker. So after going through all of that, my final thoughts are this. This phone is truly a great device. Seriously, some of the features in this phone are top of the line, while others are not so much. But altogether, this package really provides a bang for your buck. I can definitely recommend it and say this phone is for you if you are looking for a high quality phone with great features and you're on a budget. Or maybe if you feel like the phone you currently own is just too expensive and want to downgrade without having to actually downgrade much. And then number 3, maybe if you're like me and want to branch out from Apple and want to get a taste of Android, this phone would be a great first experience and it wouldn't break your wallet. Let me know in the comments if this is something that you would pick up when it releases. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed the review, make sure to drop a like down below. And if you enjoy tech and like saving money, just make sure to subscribe as well. Thanks again to OnePlus for sending this phone out, and I truly hope that you guys got some value out of this one. Let me know what your thoughts were on the production quality and if you have any suggestions for future videos. Thanks again, and as always, I'll see you in a bit.